can hear you guys.
All right. We're live. And it's 9:59, so I'm going to wait one more minute.
And the room expiration is 4 hours.
Good.
We're good.
Okay, it's 10 o'clock, so we're going to start. Good morning. My name is Tony DiGiovanni, and I'm the Executive Director of Landscape Ontario. This COVID-19 chaos has everyone feeling frightened, anxious, and unsettled. There are a lot of unknowns and many unanswered questions. However, it is important to remind ourselves that as severe as this situation is, we have the freedom, responsibility, and ability to make positive choices. We also have the responsibility to look beyond our own situation and try to help others. This is why our COVID task force decided to host this webinar. We have asked a number of industry leaders to share their perspectives and strategies on how they are dealing with the issue. What are they doing to preserve and maintain their businesses? What are they doing to support their employees? What is their perspective on the future? The panelists include Alan White, who's the chair of our task force, Peter Guinane, Colin Cruji, Jeff Olsen, and Jamie Riddell. Each will have 10 minutes to talk. Each will introduce themselves. And at the end of the session, we will open up to questions from the attendees. Questions will be submitted by chat directly from the computer. And therefore, let's start. Please introduce yourself and your business and tell us how you're dealing with the COVID issue. And so we're going to start with Peter. Go ahead, Peter.
Good morning, everybody. And thank you for tuning in. I hope that we can help in a small way. I don't have answers. I have a lot of questions as well. I know how I'm dealing with those questions. I've had a lot of experience. Oriole landscaping, I started in 1986, and I've been through 2 pretty bad recessions. And this is completely different. This is brand new for me too. I've been a member of Landscape Ontario since 1996. I've served on the board. I've served as chair of the Contractors Commodity Group. I've served as chair of Canada Blooms, co-chair with Jeff Olsen. I've been participating at the CNLA in the Landscape Canada Commodity Group. I'm vice chair of that right now. But this is brand new. So this is something we're all working through together. Landscape Ontario is working to find solutions, to find assistance wherever possible. And that's part of what we're doing here today. What I'm going to talk about is what I'm doing for my employees and for my customers. Obviously, maintaining your business, maintaining cash flow, that's huge. The other panelists here today are going to touch on that as well. So I've made some notes, and I'm going to just talk about what we're doing first for our staff. That is perhaps the most urgent issue that we're dealing with. We've been challenged for the last 20 years to find enough qualified, skilled, motivated staff. And this situation is putting all of that work in jeopardy. The most important thing that we can do as business owners is instill trust with our staff that you are not going to abandon them, that you will support them however you can. Some of you may not have enough money to support them. At this time of year, we're all short on cash. But what you can do is you can find ways to help them through government resources. There's a lot of links available on the Landscape Ontario webpage, and I would suggest taking the time to find those links, to forward them to your staff, to communicate with your staff. And I think that's the first point I'm going to talk about is communication, because that's going to be the one thing that keeps your employees engaged and will build that trust. So obviously communicate with your staff that you're having challenges, be honest with them. Do your cash flow analysis. I think the others will talk about that a bit, but maybe share that information with your staff. You can plan on cash flow shortages a month in advance. And if your staff are true champions of your business, they will understand your challenges and they can share in the success of your company. If they agree, like my staff have agreed to go on employment insurance with supplemental top-up, I can't afford to pay my staff during a shutdown. And I've communicated that with them. They hopefully understand. But communicating your challenges with your staff is a good way to instill some trust that you're not just protecting yourself. Share with your staff customer feedback. We've had a couple of customers postpone their projects because they're also impacted by the COVID-19, and communicate that with your staff that many customers are still going to go ahead. Some are going to be scaling back, but keep that open dialogue so your staff know that there is still a business and that you still have work for them when this does end, and it will end. We don't know how long it'll be, but we know there will be a point where we have to get back to work. And like I said before, provide assistance wherever you can in terms of links for employment insurance. So your customers, again, customer communication is number one with your customers. There are a lot of questions that they're going to have about the viability of your company, perhaps being able to do the work when this is over. Again, share whatever planning you have with your customers to assure them that you are prepared to go back to work, that you've secured your employees, your resources, your materials. Regular communication is critical. In addition, if there's going to be delays to the contract and the execution of the contract, you have to communicate that with your staff, your customers, as soon as possible. If you are engaged in a commercial contract with using the CCDC, there's a legal obligation, even in this situation, to give clients and general contractors and your subcontractors 10 days notice of timeline extensions that may be incurred as a result of any slowdown. And failure to notify in a timely manner can reduce your ability to protect yourself in the contract. Payments are still due, so communicate honestly with your customers that you need to maintain cash flow and that you require those payments. Some of them will not be able to fulfill their payment obligations, and you can be understanding, but it's still a contract. You can be fair, but you can still pursue your legal rights to that money. If you have done work on a property and they owe you money and they want to walk away, I mean, we're generous, we're thoughtful, but we're not dumb, and we're going to have to lien those properties, and that's our money that's in their property. And if necessary, you're going to have to go after it hard. Be as considerate for your customers as you can be, but don't abandon your legal rights to that money if you have money on customers' properties. And in addition, there are legal rights to claiming additional costs, depending on your contract. Again, if you're in the CCDC, there are provisions for hazardous conditions on the job site incurring additional costs. This could be considered a hazardous condition. It could be considered a toxic substance on a job site, which is unforeseen. There's a lot of legal opportunities for you to claim additional costs. So if you have to work differently, if you have to prepare your staff differently, if you have to work in smaller crews, this could all potentially increase your costs on a job, and you may have an opportunity to claim those additional costs. But obviously, it depends on the detail in the contract. There are clauses in the CCDC, as I said, and there may be consideration. You may have clients that will take pity on you because they can see the challenges that you're having, and maybe they can afford to pay an extra couple percent or a few $1,000s for those extra costs. If you are honest with them and you're not trying to gouge them, they may share in that cost with you. So be honest with your customers, communicate regularly, and if they think you've abandoned the job, they may not have faith in you. So communication will instill confidence that you will still be there. I have clients who have paid me deposits, and they could easily ask for those deposits back. But I have been communicating with them to assure them that we'll still be there. We may be delayed, depending on how long this work shutdown persists. But I'm hoping that I can maintain those clients for starts later in the season. So that is, that's the most important, communication. So I'm going to surrender. If you have questions, please put it in the chat box, email me, whatever you got. So I'm going to pass it on to the next.
Thanks, Peter. So the sub-plan idea is something that I just want to underscore, and hopefully other panelists here will discuss it, and just to get a little bit more detail. And I think afterwards we have quite enough time to answer questions coming from the audience. Anyway, our next presenter is Jeff. So Jeff, maybe you can tell us what your strategies are and give us a few words.
Thank you very much. Good morning, everybody. Nice to see you all, or I guess nice for you to see us. This is our first webinar that we've done, I think, any of us. So we hope it really goes well. I'll just ask any of the other presenters to please put your on mute so we don't get any feedback. I'm going to speak about our business. My business is Brookdale Treeland Nurseries. We're a wholesale grower. And we have 5 farms. We max at about 300 employees in the spring and about 600 at Christmas time. I've been in Landscape Ontario for a long time, 25 years, member of Landscape Ontario, been on the board, worked with Canada Blooms throughout the organization, and happy to be on this task force to try to help our members understand how to navigate this very, very challenging time. So I'm going to give you some stuff from my perspective and from what we're doing as a business. So I'm going to start with protecting employees and what we've done. To begin with, when this all started out, we employed all of the hygiene and social distancing directives that came through from the World Health Organization. And that seemed like a lifetime ago. It was probably 3 weeks ago. But we employed that quickly, right out of the gate. From there, as the world changed over the next 10 days, we began to say, okay, anybody who can work from home now is working from home. So we, some of our office staff, etc., are able to work from home. We've employed deep cleaning of our offices and common areas on a daily basis. So just some practical things that we're doing that everybody should be doing. And then weekly communication, as Peter mentioned, weekly communication with our laid off staff to provide assistance in navigating the programs that are available as they are announced. So our chief financial officer puts out a memo twice a week to all of our employees' personal emails that lets them know about the programs and what support they require to get on those programs as they're coming out. Basically every few days there's something new announced. So we're communicating that directly with our employees. They're not always the most sophisticated financially, so we're trying to provide our assistance to them in navigating those programs. This week we began to send $100 per laid off employee in the form of grocery gift cards. These programs are announced. They're wonderful. They're not going to happen quickly. The systems are overwhelmed with applicants, and so you can expect that your employees are going to see delays in getting money. And so Loblaws offers a 5% discount on bulk purchases of these gift cards, which is really handy. It's $5 on 100, but it's something. And so we send them out, and you can do them either via a hard copy or an e-coupon for your staff. And what's unique to growers is our temporary foreign worker program. And we have about 40% of our team in place from Mexico and Jamaica. And it's really key to protect and keep those people healthy and feed their families as well. They're suffering as much as anybody. They don't have social networks in their or social safety nets in their countries. So we are keeping them working less, but keeping them working. So that's on the employee side. I'm protecting our business. I hate to say it, but we've laid off 60% of our workers as of 10 days ago. So about 110 people. And we ensured that our key team stays intact though, but they have redefined roles. So if you were a manager of X today, you might be, a shipping supervisor of Y tomorrow, but we want to keep that key team in place. We've cut costs in all parts of the business, things like equipment rentals, other overhead costs. So not only labor, but you're trying to find any area that we can find costs. Then we have immediately spoke to our banks, garnered their support, and applied immediately for special programs that are being offered. Very fortunate, I would suggest to any grower out there that if you're not with Farm Credit, that you should be speaking to them because they are the conduit that the government is using to deploy some of these agricultural programs. And like immediately, we were able to defer our mortgage payments for a year. And that was a simple application process, and in 5 minutes it was done. So some advice there for other growers. We're speaking to customers daily about any opportunities to create revenue. How do we redeploy assets? We have trucks, we have warehouses. How do we redeploy those immediately to try to generate revenue? We're looking at customer contracts to ensure that they hold up. I think it was a great conversation, Peter, that you mentioned. We deal with large retailers and they have contracts with us, and we as Peter said, we want to be honest, we want to be fair, but they need to hold up their end of the bargain. And we see them as these billion-dollar organizations, and they need to hold up their end of the bargain. We have stopped all new production until further notice. So we're not planting anything, we're not producing anything right now until we see where this goes. And finally, we've stopped my salary and my family's salaries who work here as well until other employees return as a show of solidarity to our team. Finally, I'll discuss the future, the next 6 months. I guess the future is the next 6 minutes right now, but the next 6 months, we are forecasting a minimum of a 50% drop in revenue. Growers get one shot a year to make money. It's in April and May, and a week in a grower's world in April is like a month or 6 weeks in any other business. So we're forecasting a 50% drop in business. I'm forecasting that we're going to come out of this with a severely increased debt load. But I think everybody, who owns a house or who is unemployed right now is going to come out of this with heavier debt loads. Maybe at great rates, but it's going to be a heavier debt load. And I think it's going to be a much longer term impact than the next 6 months. I mean, recovery could take several years. That's what we're forecasting for. And I like to do that as a worst case scenario. So not to be grim, but I think you got to take a realistic and worst case scenario approach to this. Finally, on my time, I think I hit the 10 minutes here for close. We are taking the 10-10-10 approach. How do I feel in 10 minutes? How do I feel in 10 months? And how do I feel in 10 years? That's the approach we're kind of psychologically taking in this whole thing. So again, I'm going to be available for questions after. Email me. You'll find all of our contacts on the LO website. But I'll pass it over to our next presenter.
Jeff, thank you very much for your insights. Our next presenter is Jamie Riddell. So Jamie, maybe you can talk a little bit about yourself and your company and what your strategies are.
Hello, everybody. Yeah, I'm Jamie Riddell. I'm part of the leadership team here at SiteOne Landscape Supply. We are a national landscape wholesaler to the contracting trade. and we have locations, as I said, coast to coast. From a people perspective, I would echo what everybody else is saying. You know, there's not a lot we're doing differently than what Jeff and Peter said. People that can work from home are working from home. People that are deemed essential are working in our locations to maintain our essential business. And we are practicing all safety protocols. And we have daily communication from leadership to our teams in the field with any updates or any any changes to the procedures that we had previously laid out. I will reiterate Peter's point and Jeff's point. Communication is the utmost importance, not only to our employees but to all of our partners. And you know, I'm going to talk a little bit about the supplier side in this trying time. And you know, the important part to remember about supplier contractor relationships is our business are not that different. We each have customers, and our success in our business is geared around the success of our end user, right? So you know, we're successful when we're making our customers more profitable, more efficient, and you're successful when you're delivering the end product that your customer believes and contracts you for, and you're exceeding their expectations. So with our business models not being that different, at times like this is when you got to start to think about a lot of different models that are available out there. And when you're thinking about the different models, you got to kind of apply a different lens to it. The same way you would apply a lens to pricing some of your contracts. If you're adding cost, if your customer is adding cost to your business, then the price that you're going to do that work for is going to have to increase. So for instance, a great example is if you had a customer that said they needed an irrigation system installed at some point this year, lighting system, or insert any green industry service here. By the end of the year, your price to them might be a little bit more favorable than a customer that says, I need this installed by the weekend, I'm having a party, right? So, you know, that person that needs that service instantly and on demand, it's going to cost you a little bit more. You're going to put in some more overtime. So the cost of your business is going to go up. The cost of that customer is going to go up. Well, the same goes for a supplier contractor partnership. If you can take cost out of a supplier's business, you're going to get a favorable or more aggressive price. But the most important part of the partnership between a contractor and a supplier is the proactive communication. And in today's times, it really needs to be proactive and exploratory. We need to be talking about things and listening to ideas that have been coming up for many years that may have not been as important to you at that point when business was good. Some of and most of these options are going to be very attractive when times are not as good. And when I think about communication, I always think back to this one story, and it has a lot to do with my family, and it taught me a very valuable lesson. You know, we all joke about in this world, there's not a lot of things that are certain. Well, I fortunately have one thing that I know in this world that is certain, and that is at 12 o'clock every day, my father is standing in front of a counter, grabbing 3 slices of bread, covering them in peanut butter. At 12:03, he's grabbing that plate and heading to the table to eat his lunch. At 12 o'clock every day, I know I can call him. I know he's there. Well, it was an Easter dinner a couple years ago where I had the whole family over, and we're sitting down to eat. We're kind of going through the buffet table. Mom and dad and myself are standing around, and my mom's filling her plate. She grabs the heel of the French baguette, covers it in butter, sticks it on her plate. And my dad looks at her. My mom catches the puzzled look and says, well, if I don't get here and grab the heel now, by the time you get here, it's going to be gone, and I won't get to eat it. My dad just looks at me and goes, man, I've been eating that heel for 50 years. I didn't think she liked it, right? So these are people that have been married for 50 years, communicating daily, and they still are learning things about one another. And when you think of a supplier-contractor relationship, a lot of us have had those supplier-contractor relationships that have ranged from 5 to 10, in some cases 35, 40, 50 years, right? And it's times like this where you really need to kind of leverage that relationship and that history, but also you need to take a step back and start to listen to all the different things that we've been discussing over the years together that may have not been attractive, right? So as a supplier, what are we going to do to help you in a situation like today where cash flow is a really big focus for us, right? There's a lot of things you can talk to your supplier about in relation to cash flow, but one of the probably the biggest things you're going to want to talk about is what does the supply chain look like? Is the supply chain robust? Is there any potential for interruption? Are you seeing any shortages coming, right? That would be a great question to ask in order to kind of, before you sit down and formulate your plan on spending money, is to understand what the supply chain looks like, what availability looks like. When times are good, a lot of people like to buy ahead and buy in bulk and have extended terms and have payables far out. Well, in today's day and age, understanding that supply chain and knowing you don't have to buy in bulk and extend yourself and use critical cash resources at this point is extremely important. Another thing we face as contractors and suppliers in this industry is large commercial projects, large commercial work. Those are the things that are the most sizable investments from a contractor standpoint, from a labor, equipment, and material standpoint. And going ahead and buying ahead huge commercial projects on your credit line at your distributor or supplier is using credit that you may need at some other point, the credit availability to pay some of your greater expenses, whether that be payroll, equipment, and other company overheads. So you can look at programs like job lines, which is something that a company can offer that allows us, the supplier, to secure the credit for the job against the owner of the project, not you, the contractor. And it allows us to enact the lien rights available to us in Ontario on your behalf and not using your credit. So in a job line situation, if payment is delayed, not only do we already secured the lien rights for you, but at the same time, you have a partner that's going to go out there and help you collect that money, right? So limiting your liability on large purchases and large supply agreements on commercial projects can be done easily using a job line credit vehicle, which again leaves you that resource of cash to pay the bigger parts of your expenses, which are payroll, equipment, and the rest of your overheads. There's other things you can discuss, inventory stocking options. You can talk about buying ahead. You can talk about buying project by project. You can talk about extended terms for large orders, or you can look at options like consignment, where your supplier places agreed upon inventory in your warehouse that you can draw from and you can use to perform your daily tasks and sometimes projects. And what's the advantage to consignment over ordering is that typically you're not invoiced by a supplier ahead of that material being used and installed and converted to revenue. So your receivables and your payables line up a lot easier because you're not bulk buying ahead and extending and laying out cash. It's actually, it's a supplier's inventory in your warehouse and you're drawing on it as you need. So that can help you to free up cash flow today, but also to make sure that your payables match up with your receivables. So I've kind of taken a long way around talking about how your supplier partners can be helpful in times like today. But the most important aspect is open, honest, proactive communication. It's inevitable that we're all going to face some type of adversity when it comes to credit and cash flow in a time like this. And your supplier partners are there to help you as long as they know how and what the expectation of help is. So please never hesitate to proactively reach out and describe and explain your situations. Your supplier partners are there for you and they're there with you on the fight. So, never hesitate to ask and never hesitate, to over communicate. That's all I have, Tony.
Thanks, Jamie. Thanks for words of wisdom and your stories. Our next speaker is Alan White. Alan, Can you introduce yourself and what you do and what your strategies are?
I'll try and keep the conversation semi-short. My name is Alan White, and I am the task force chair for this group with the assistance of a couple other of our leadership within the Landscape Ontario Board of Directors. As of last week, we saw the urgency that was coming out of this. Our board meeting at Landscape Ontario on Thursday, it became evident that we need to bring relevant information directly to the membership and act as not only just a conduit, but to disseminate the information, to access our resources and channels, to try and find the information that was most pertinent to our members. Again, some of you have been patient, some are frustrated with the time it takes. I can assure you that we are working diligently to get that information directly to you, but it does take, the government is drastically obviously overloaded with all this interest that are affected by this, but we are continuing to work to get that to you, and not just bringing opinions to you. This format gives us the ability to share our stories, but we think it's important on the website to bring you real information and factual information. So we'll continue to do that. And again, our apologies for those that have been patiently waiting, and I encourage others to do the same as we go through this difficult time. But again, my name is Alan White. I have participated in the Landscape Ontario Board of Directors for probably the last 20 plus years. I'm also the CNLA Climate, now COVID-19 chair at the national level. My business is in the lawn care, irrigation, and snow removal space in Burlington, Ontario, and I've been operating for the last 30 years. I want to thank my fellow panelists here for bringing the information they're bringing forward, and hopefully be able to share with you a bit of what we're doing. I can say, maybe because of the forefront of this, we were in, like all of us on this call, probably we're right in the transition season, except for maybe the growers. They've hopefully been actively at their profession, their craft for the entire winter, getting ready for this month, as Jeff alluded to. But we're right in that transition period. So we were onboarding our new employees, finishing off with our winter season, and the decision last week was made, and again, the first time in 30 years, to onboard and lay off in the same week. We're in complete shutdown during this waiting period. We were initially going to start April 1st. Now we're planning on starting April 6th. That's the current plan. Things are definitely evolving, and we will reevaluate this on a daily basis. I want to add some of the new piece, but I want to touch back on where particularly Peter left off, was employees. Protecting employees for us has been first and foremost on our minds, to make sure that while we were still working, that we had proper protocols in place, we had the proper protections to make sure that our responsibility to them was cared for, that we were bringing, again, the right information, bringing the right materials in, the right hand washing stations, sanitization stations, protocols from the time they walked into our front door to the time they left at the end of the day, that every point along their journey was thought through. And it was definitely, by the time everybody went home at the end of last week, it was getting to be a pretty daunting task to constantly remind us all to behave differently in our just the simplest of day-to-day activities, from how we touch time clocks to open doors to enter vehicles. When we're not working, and I'll talk about this quite a bit, is our goal, and through my 30 years of business and through coaching from others, it's when we get to these crisis moments, whether it was a recession or weather, a drought summer, or a winter that didn't happen, how do we preserve cash? How do we help our employees and our company maintain their obligations, but at the same time not burn through our capital that allows us to operate as a business and not go broke? Our whole goal here is to remain solvent for our customers, to remain in business for our employees, and selfishly to remain in business for our families. How do we do that, though? How do we access, or how do we get them, as you've heard many here on this call, move our employees to government programs that are available? EI and emergency relief benefit plans, they're not put in place right now for just to be used. They were put in place for this exact purpose. And this is the time to be having those conversations with your employee, explaining why we're doing it, explaining how it benefits them, and then move as many of them into that security zone as possible. If you have work for them, great, but still get them onto these programs. So as the system gets loaded up, you're not behind the 8 ball to make it happen for them, because there will be delays and they have responsibilities to their families that are daily, as Jeff alluded to. The other big one that Tony's talked to, and there is a couple things on our task force website as it relates to payroll from the Canadian Payroll Association, accessing the sub plan for those that haven't used it before. It's a supplemental unemployment benefit plan with the government of Ontario, or not the government of Ontario, government of Canada. It is allowed to work in concert with the current EI program. It allows you as an employer, there is a bit of paperwork at the front to get registered as an employer, but it allows you as an employer to top up their pay anywhere from the, I think it's maximum 55%. Again, I apologize for the maybe lack of detail. Payroll here looks after this. I don't. I just suggest to them what I want them to do, and they go make it all happen. But the sub plan allows you to go from that 55% max up to a 95% of their current pay. They can't exceed 95%. So this allows you to, as Jeff says, putting $100 into grocery coupons so they can get access to food. This program allows, without penalty, you to provide them pay without their EI being deducted. And we've utilized it for many years for things like off-season snow removal for guys I want to keep, to show that I have an investment in them. I may only top them up 10% on top of their EI, but 10% is better than nothing. Our top managers, you can preserve cash in your company by moving those guys over to this program too, and making them whole by offering them 95% of their pay to work from home. So these do two things: one, secure your employee and protect them; two, preserve cash in your company. Also have a plan. We've heard over and over, communicate. Communication is important for your clients. It's important for your employees. They need to have confidence and trust in what you're doing, and that you're looking out for their best interest. That's something that we do here. We've set up online chats. WhatsApp's got a great one. All my employees are in there. They're able to communicate amongst themselves. I've set up different chats for different levels of management in the company that allows for a filter down depending on how big an audience I want the conversation to go to. It's also helpful for me as an owner to see the conversation going on between employees, so I can get a good sense of what they're dealing with and what their challenges are, because the first thing they're going to do when they're struggling is reach out to their peers. So by setting up the tool, it allows you an easy access to observe that information. And then have a plan for them when they return. But more importantly, and lots of talk about the employees, the big one too is protecting your business. Without your business being protected, there is nothing, as I started with, for your clients, for your employees, or for your family. Collect all your receivables. Be sure that all the work that you've done up to date, or if you're still working, is invoiced. And then take a look. If you're not doing cash flow forecasting, I advise you to do cash flow forecasting, especially when the income side has a potential to go to zero. What are your expenses? How much is your cash reserve? How much do you have in line of credit secured? And how far will that carry you in the event of a complete market shutdown? That's your starting point to start looking at what expenses you can trim right away. Do you need the cable bill? Do you need the GPS in the truck? So the things that you don't need for the foreseeable future that you could trim off your expenses. And then the other, some people have talked about here, meet with your lenders. It's about relationships, as James said. Everybody has a responsibility here, but also everybody from the banks to your suppliers want you to be whole at the end. So have the discussion now. Don't wait for things to get really difficult or the wheels to fall off the bus, or you run to the end of your cash flow forecast and now your expenses exceed your reserves. And don't just not pay your bills. That's the worst thing you could do for supplier relationships, especially if your company's been, well, either it's brand new or if it's been around for a while. You need to have these friends in the marketplace, because all of us together can work through it. Individually, you're going to find yourself isolated. And then once you've done that, relook at your cash flow forecast again to see how far you're able to extend it. This will give you a really good benchmark. If any of the variables change and if the market lightens up, if restrictions lighten up, you can start to see an inflow of cash. That helps. It'll go to my next piece about planning for the future a bit, but if you understand your cash flow forecast and where you can go to, it really puts you in a positive position to manage it and look at the future. Because Jeff said a 50% downturn in his market is that in itself, even if we went back to work tomorrow, it's going to cause a big ripple effect on your forecasting for this year. And for many of us, just our overhead that we've built for the last 5 to 10 years, these things for our current workload, cut half of your customers out. What does that look like? And then a big one that I've already had a bunch of people calling me, avoid the temptation of deals. There's already in the marketplace, especially for snow contractors, now they're coming out of winter, there is equipment manufacturers and others that are looking at inventory and going, I don't want all this on my book. This was for last year's business load. They're looking at their forecast like Jeff and I and the rest of this panel are looking at going, I got to trim some stuff. So when your equipment's coming off rent for the winter stuff, deals are coming forward and saying, you know what, I'll give you this loader at 40, 50% off to move forward. My suggestion is hold off. The marketplace is going to be very dynamic over the next 6 to 12 months. And these things I would hazard a guess are going to be around tomorrow. So today, preserve cash until such point as we have a better understanding what tomorrow looks like. As it relates to tomorrow, plan for the future during the next 2 weeks. If you're in this pause, like many of us are, what have you been able to do? What is your return to work plan? What does the next 2 weeks look like? And if we were able to go out in 2 weeks or 3 weeks, what would your operation look like? What would your ready plan be? Not just with your suppliers, but with your protocols, your safety. How would we converse with our customers in 3 weeks and with the general public to make it safe? And then look at 30 days, 60 days, 90 days, quarter Q3 and Q4. These, as Jeff kind of framed it in the sense of 10, 10, and 10. I think it's really important to look in the moment to make sure that you are in a solid protection place. You've taken care of what's important, but never stop looking at taking your eye off the ball tomorrow and down the road, because those things are going to become reality. And really listen to the news right now. This is a reality that's never been seen before in the world. We're looking at what's happened as it's moved from Asia this way. Take that as real. Plan for that scenario when. It needed a trigger like this to actually put the economic downturn in motion. So behind all this, that is happening already anyway. And again, not to be the doom and gloom, but plan for the potentials of what could happen. As the news and the medical community, there may be ripples to this. So when you think the calm is coming after the storm, be prepared for what they're saying. It could have a rebound in 2 months, followed by another rebound this fall. So make that part of your 30, 90-day plan. Always better to plan for the what if, and if it doesn't happen, you always know you can fall back in your last plan. So again, that's a bit about what I'm doing. The purpose of the task force and bringing these successful minds together is to be a resource to the membership and even the greater community outside. Our emails are all on the task force page. Feel free to reach out to any one of us for our discipline, our experience, and share with us the experiences you're having so that we're better positioned to help you. Thanks, Tony, and to the rest of my panelists.
Alan, thank you very much. Some great practical information there. Next is Colin. Colin, introduce yourself.
Good morning, everybody. My name is Colin Cruji. I'm the president and CEO of Sheridan Nurseries. Being new to the industry, it's the first time I've had a chance to speak with many of you. It's nice to connect. I wish it were under better circumstances, as I know you all do. I've been asked to share with you what we've done at Sheridan Nurseries, specifically on the garden center side of the business. So like everybody else, we do not have all the answers, but I'm happy to share some of the things that we have done. So like I'm sure everybody else, most of the businesses are closed on the non-essential side. So our head office is closed as well as our garden centers. We closed the garden centers as of March 17th. We had concerns about the ability to protect our staff and guests on the front line, which is why we made the decision. We've communicated the closure to be through the end of March, but clearly with the recent government direction, that will be longer. We have not made the decision when we'll reopen, especially given that things change so quickly. As everybody else mentioned, safety continues to be the #1 priority of our people. We've instituted the safety measures, the sanitary measures, the distancing that's been advised kind of throughout this the pandemic. All of our employees that can are working from home. One of the things we did very early days was we set up dedicated skeleton crews on the garden center side, and we've made sure that these crews don't overlap. So if there was somebody that came down and contacted the virus, it wouldn't wipe out the entire crew of the entire store. It would only wipe out the skeleton crew. So they have skeleton crew A, and we would still have B that would be able to operate, after a site was disinfected. So we thought that was a good idea because it would be difficult losing staff across an entire site. We've all talked about communication and how important it is. We're trying to practice that as well. One of the things we're trying to remind ourselves is that given that everybody is not on the same site, you can't see each other. So we're trying to use video chat as much as possible, just so people can see your face as well as your voice. And then we're also trying to set up recurring meetings so people know when the communication is going to come. So it's not ad hoc or a surprise. People know when the next communication is going to come, and they can prepare their questions and prepare for that meeting accordingly. Another big focus of ours is protecting our brand. We have over a 100-year brand that we're quite proud of. And so a lot of the decisions we've made have been around protecting that. We don't believe that right now is the time to be promoting our business. So as of March 17th, we went quiet on all of our social channels and all of our marketing channels. We're not promoting our business. We believe that we should play a part to let people isolate. And then we've not, as I mentioned, made the decision that when we're going to reopen. And it will be driven by 3 things. 1, government direction. 2, we'll evaluate what we think the status of the virus is and the safety to our people. And then we have to consider public perception, because there's a big play out there for people that run consumer-facing businesses. From a business perseverance perspective, a lot of the things I've mentioned that we're doing, that I'll just run through them. We've modeled out a number of financial scenarios, and we've actually taken those cash flow scenarios right through to the end of 2021, just to make sure that we understand our cash needs and through our business cycles. And then we're sharing those and staying in close communication, as I know all of you are, with your banks to make sure we can meet those needs. We've relooked at all product needs that are coming into the stores for the coming months, and making sure that we adjust the orders so we don't have products showing up that we don't need and tying up payables. We're working with our suppliers and our customers on payment terms. We're trying to be as flexible as possible on both sides, both on the payables and receivables, to make sure that we can meet all parties' needs. Again, we need to get through this together, and we don't want to be in position that we put anybody in difficult times, but we also have to protect our business. We've delayed all of our major capital expenditures. We're just doing kind of bare maintenance right now, and we've delayed everything else. It was mentioned, but we've done the same around adjusting things like service contracts. So office cleaning, you don't need office cleaning if the office is closed. The garbage pickup, anything that's service contract or discretionary spending related, we've tried to alter. We're ensuring that we maintain our perishable inventory to minimize the waste, because that would be very costly if we lost all of our live goods. We've instituted a hiring freeze for all positions, both not only hourly but also salary. We've shifted or canceled a lot of our marketing expenditures to make sure we do it not only when the time is right and we think consumers are ready, but also to minimize a negative cash position. And then we've deferred any payments we can, like income tax and realty tax installments where possible. So our priorities going forward is really around creating a store opening plan that enables social distancing, employee safety, and is also in line with the Sheridan brand. And we'll do that when we think the time is right. Our offers will include delivery, it will include pickup, but again, we won't institute those plans until we think the time is right to do that, and we haven't decided when that is. Thank you.
Thank you, Colin. So now it's time for questions. So this is the, just admit this is the first time we've used this chat, this webinar idea. And just for everyone's interest, there are 387 people that were registered, which is pretty cool for the first time. And I didn't realize, but the chat box, you can answer each other's chats as well. So there's been, while we've been talking, there's been a lot of comments and a lot of people answering comments. So it's great. This is a wonderful program. So let's get to some of the questions and some clarifications. So there was a question Jackie Hart asked. In these times, there's a lot of anxiety and a lot of people that are worried. How are we dealing with the mental health issues of our employees and, frankly, the owners themselves? So I mean, really great question. And anyone want to take that on? Okay, Jamie, go ahead.
Yeah. So what I would first start by saying is a lot of us have benefits suppliers for our employees. So I can speak to that a little bit. We have benefits through Manulife, and there's many other insurers out there that have it. And it's really important during a time like this that we communicate the availability of employee assistance programs that are offered by our insurers, and making sure that everybody has the information and knows how to contact and that they're available. From a mental health standpoint, that does play in a large way, and it's available. We just need to make sure that people know where to find that information.
What about for the owners?
So I think communication, we've heard over and over here that look at what Bell does for mental health. Let's talk. Making sure you have open avenues of communication to your team, to your peer, why we have the task force, why we're hosting this, why we have our emails available. I've been more busy in the last 10 days than I think I've been busy in the last 2 years. That's how you deal with mental health, is bringing information for, as I read through the chat. A big one I know it's on here for everybody is helping us define essential service. As I said at the beginning of my talk, we'd love to have that answer. Our recommendations we put on the website, though, to the outside world without having the access maybe directly to us, it would seem like it's almost avoiding the question. We've asked for a pause. One, we're in March still. The government is incredibly tasked. We've reached every channel or knocked on every door that we've had access to through previous meetings, from snow to pesticides to foreign workers to import exports. We have incredible, the national and provincial level, contacts with Queen's Park in Ottawa, and it takes time for them to get back to us. We even have direct backdoor access to the Premier's office, but they are incredibly busy, and I just keep getting from them, we'll get to you, wait. The 888 number that many of you had made available to you yesterday, most of you probably experienced as the rest of Ontarians did, employees and businesses, it's jammed or crashed. So again, we don't have a definitive answer yet. We have a variety of opinions from legal, but that's what legal is going to give you, is a variety of opinions. Ultimately, it's your decision, as many of the panelists here have suggested. I think it's in all of our best interest for our employees, our business, and our customers, that until we know more, and this is a very rapidly evolving situation. Look at New York State, now Los Angeles, New Orleans. There's lots of places that are mimicking exactly what we saw in Europe. We don't know what we don't know. We know there's a freight train coming, and we want to be best prepared as we can, which is why we thought it was important to pull this rapid together webinar so that you can have access to questions. But the best way to deal with mental health is to communicate. Reach out often. All of us are around. This task force has worked literally almost 24 hours a day for since Friday and over the weekend. So we've all agreed to be available anytime anybody on this the webinar wants to chat. Give any one of us a call, and we'd be more than happy to help.
Anyone else? Any other panelists want to talk about mental health for employees or owners?
Tony, maybe I'll grab it here. Ironically, it came from Jackie Hart, so I'll use your peers. If you're in a peer group as an owner, I'm personally in YPO. If you're in Cafe or one of the other, or even in the LO peer-to-peer groups, use those to your best advantage as an owner. And because I'm sure that everybody within it is sharing your pain right now. So use your peer contacts, your peer networks. They may be competition with you, but set that aside for the moment. We're an industry, we're a family, and try to use the contacts within the industry to share your pain and use them to help you get through this.
Else want to comment on that? Mental health? Okay, the other strong theme was around the subplan. There's a lot of questions about the subplan, and one of them was, how to get access to it. Another was, I think, let's see here. But can people work if they're on the subplan?
Yeah, I can answer that, Tony. And we've utilized the program for probably the last 10 years. To access it, you just go to the government website, the Federal Employment Canada website, and just Google Supplemental Unemployment Benefits Plan. And it will come up with all the links and resources. I know this one will probably inundate my email box if I say, just give me a call if you want me to walk you through it. And I'm not actually the one. Again, my payroll department takes care of all those details and have helped many of our members get onto it. Can you work while you're on subplan? The answer is no. It's uninsurable earnings, the same as unemployment insurance's uninsurable earnings. So the second they work, they have to claim. That's again why because the employer on EI gives an employee $100. That's outside the subplan. That's taxable dollars. It's a benefit. It actually gets deducted from their EI. Subplan is a pre-registered plan that has a contract with your employee that has the terms of what the contract is going to be, how much you're going to top them up for being off work. It's a shortage of work. You have nothing for them to do. So while they're at home, it's to make them whole. It was actually created out of the unions going through their retooling or factory shutdowns. It was negotiated with the government. Years ago, they made this accessible to small business. But you still have to have a collective agreement, which essentially means you have a contract between you and your employee. It has a start and end date of the work shortage, and has an agreement between the two of you that you share with the government. The government verifies that is indeed an agreement and then allows you to access the program. Once you've accessed the program, though, then you don't have to re-register each time. And if you do have the employee come into work, now our employees are at home. If they're answering a phone call or something, or sitting on a chat or an online, again, we're training some of our employees through video conferencing since we can't do their onboarding here. Those things aren't really declared working while they're unemployed. Same as if they went to a night course or something. They wouldn't claim that as insurable earnings. If they came in to do snow removal or water the plants or something along those lines, then yes, you would pay them for those 3 hours. They would claim that. That would come off their EI portion, the same way it would come off EI portion in any other circumstance. It would continue to do that to zero on their EI side of it, and then it would allow the other portion, because the piece you're paying, to go the other way. You can never exceed, while you're on program, 95% of the employee's normal earnings. So that's kind of the guidelines. And as I said earlier, you can choose in your collective agreement to top them up 10%, 20%. You just can't exceed topping them up past 95.
Thanks, Alan. It's obvious that we need to do a webinar strictly on the subplan. And so thank you, audience, because you've given us a great idea. There's lots of questions there.
Tony, if I can add what we're working on too, which isn't part of the subplan. So a lot of most people on this call are probably managers or even more so probably owners. Owners don't qualify for EI. So the government has made available, and this is part of preserving cash. The government has some emergency plans that were passed by Parliament just 2 nights ago. We're in the process, Sally Harvey and Leslie at CNLA, working with Judith Andrews, who is our liaison with Employment Canada. This emergency relief plan is available for anybody that doesn't qualify for EI. We're just trying to figure out if, because the Prime Minister announced this would be available for self-employed people. What is the ability for Subplan to work with that program? Because it right now, to my knowledge, it only works on EI, which would work for anybody on payroll that's not a director of the corporation, or anybody that's not self-employed. So again, we're working through some of that. As we learn more of that, through the task force website, we'll make sure that's available to everybody else. That program doesn't come into effect, I don't think, until April 6th. But in cash preservation, depending on how long this goes, that's something too for you and your family as owners. If it's $500 a week or $2,000 a month, $2,000 a month of cash flow on a cash flow forecast, personally and business-wise, that has a zero on the income side is better than nothing.
Thanks, Alan. There's a question here about garden centers. So maybe Colin, you can chime in here. It's from Jennifer Simpkins. Retail is closed, but how many and should we do delivery and contactless curbside pickup? So is there a way that garden centers can still operate? I know some are. So Colin, do you want to talk about that a little bit?
Yeah. So I'm as
You're
far
muted.
he is. I don't think I am. Can you hear me?
Yep. No, we can't.
No?
Yep.
Sorry. I'm as foggy as everybody is on the direction and looking for clarity as well. Sorry, if the question is the question, are we permitted to, or are others doing it? I'm just not sure on what the question is.
Tony, you were on mute.
Yeah, the question was, is there a way to continue doing business in a retail garden center that is closed?
Okay, so we have chosen not to, as I mentioned earlier, and I think there's, I think the way I read it, those who want to offer delivery and pickup are permitted, and there's lots of folks out there in the industry that are offering that. We've chosen not to for the reasons that I stated, and so I think there's a legal question, and then I think there's a kind of business strategy or a social question, and our answer to the social question right now is that we're not offering that, so we play our part in allowing people to isolate and have shut the stores completely down. But clearly there are other folks out there doing it, and I believe the way I interpret the direction is that would be permitted.
Right. I think I agree with you. Let's see what else is out there. There's so many issues here. And there's lots about the, whether or not we're essential. Apart from the interpretation, I was thinking about it last night, probably in bed. I've spent my entire life talking about people about how essential our business is, how essential horticulture is. Can you imagine a world without green space and gardens? What do you have? I have no doubt that we're essential, and especially now in these times, people need plants, they need gardens, they need the therapeutic value, they need to see things grow, they need spring to come, so just from a horticultural perspective, there's no doubt in my mind that we're essential. Unfortunately, in terms of the interpretation of the essential business list, we're just not sure. It's broad enough that you can fit yourself in. Some sectors can fit themselves in, but you need to make your own decision on that because we can't get clarity, as Ellen had said. But are we essential? You're damn right we're essential. Alan, you're muted.
Alan, you're still muted.
Oh, yes, there we go. Thank you. Yeah, I agree with Tony and everything there. We've always seen ourselves as essential service to healing, to economic, to environment, and all the aspects. The government, the piece we're trying to get clarity on is they chose the word essential operation in their document, and we know they're trying to limit for the immediate future people-to-people contact, but they still need to have facilities operational from HVAC, sanitation, and cleaning. So this is where there's the separation. So it's not that we disagree we're not essential as far as society and as far as livability as city. This is a real impact, a health impact thing in the immediacy. We know landscapes will be here tomorrow. We know landscapes will be part of our future in the city. We just hope that we all get through this hole, and those loved ones and people that we know from our clients to our employees to our own family members aren't impacted by this as it comes across the continent. So we're just doing, some of us are already doing our part to do what we can to minimize this spread. None of us have the answers. And even you see government officials that are struggling because of the unknown. We're all business people. We like black and white, and we like certainty and planning. This is really limiting our ability to do that. So there is no real right or wrong answer, and we even expect the government's position, just like south of the border, over the next couple of days, this may evolve yet further because of the progression of this disease. So again, patience with everybody. Allow us to help you manage the stress that goes with it, and we'll work together to get through it.
Thank you, Alan. So we're at 1 minute. We're 7 minutes over, and there's still a lot of great discussion going on, and that will give us the opportunity to filter the questions and maybe develop a few more webinars, and we will get back to you. I mean, the one theme that's been through all this is communicate, and I think that's wisdom. So let's keep talking to each other.
Tony, a great webinar on Monday too. That's really helpful. That one you shared, and we've managed to tee him up to present on Monday. Incredibly useful for preparing for crisis management, all the things. And in a positive way. It's about building blocks and doing the right things at the right moment. So I don't know if you want to give that a plug, Tony. I forget what time.
Yeah, no, for sure. So on our website, we've got a great resource page, and there's a section on webinars. So tomorrow there's actually a webinar that's focused on HR issues, and on Monday, Alan was talking about the webinar with Warren Coughlin. Who is a business coach. We've already posted one of his webinars, but he's doing this one live just for Landscape Ontario members, or just for the landscape community, and really well worth it. So just to underscore Alan. So I just want to thank the presenters. I've always called the association a club or a community for mutual improvement and mutual benefit. And boy, is it. You can tell with everyone that's stepping up to try and help. You can tell with all of the comments on the chat box. And so I just thank you everyone for attending this webinar. We are hosting more webinars, and this event has given us more information or more ideas for others. And although most of us are unsettled, there are some solid foundational truths that may be helpful to remember. One is that this COVID situation will not last forever. When we get to the end of this journey, we will be stronger and we'll be wiser. If we focus on helping others as much as we can, we'll grow personally and we'll grow spiritually. Many positives can come out of adversity, And situations like this remind us of what really matters: family, friends, relationships, community, caring. We have the opportunity to step up, take on as much responsibility as we can handle, and make the world a better place. There's hope in every situation, and spring is coming. So thank you very much. Thank you to the panelists again, and thank you for all the attendees. See you soon. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thanks.